In this example, we will work with a photo where we have the advantage of working with the focus in the image, because we have a shallow depth of field and the background is already blurred out. We will be able to use this new feature in Photoshop CC 2014 called Focus Area. Now, I already talked about this in the first chapter and we looked at a simple example, but in this one we have a little bit more work to do. So let me just click on Focus Area and let's see what this automated selection will be able to do with this image without me saying anything. Now you can see that it actually created quite a lot of mistakes, so we can always maybe increase it a little bit. So from 4 to 5, let's have a look. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. But then we can also use the brushes. So I can draw over her arm because I would like to include that in the selection, and it quickly shows up. I can hold down Alt and draw over this part here because I would like to remove that. Again, it made a mistake here. I would like the clothes to be included, and then I can again hold down Alt, draw over these details here on the top, removing them. Alt click over those two as well. Maybe try to remove the background around the hair a little bit more. Also in that part. Yeah, that looks quite good. And then we can again do the same thing here. Alt and draw over that detail. Alt and draw over that detail as well there. Okay, now there's a couple of additional options here. We have soften edges, which we can remove. Then it will be a little bit harder on the edges. So I most of the time keep soften edges on. And then we can also play around with the image noise level. Depending on the noise of the image, we can either increase that or decrease that, and it can help to get a better selection with the focus area. But then the best thing to do after this is to go straight into the refine edge option. So once you created your selection, you can go to refine edge, and it already saved it as a mask, so it will become refine mask. And then we can click on smart radius and increase the radius a little bit, and we can zoom closer to the edges to see how it's going to improve the edges. So let's see if we increase the edge detail much higher. That will make the edges much more soft, which is definitely not what we want. So I would like to keep the edges a bit sharper. And for that, I might need to add a bit of contrast, which will do a really good job of sharpening the edges. So I use smart radius and contrast together, and keep an eye on the edges. That was before, and this is after. So while focus area did a little bit of a rough edge around the skin tones, with the smart radius on and a bit of contrast, we managed to improve it a lot. Let's have a look at these details here again, before and after. I just press P to go back and forth, and I can see it's so much better after. Let's have a look at his head before and after. That looks also so much better. So all around the edges, I think this improved our selection. Let's see this part here, before and after. Yeah, I can say that it's all around the edges looks so much better. Now the only problem will be her hair, because even after that didn't improve at all. So what we will have to do is to address that separately. So if you have like 90% of the edges perfect with one of the setup here in Refine Mask, then you shouldn't try to address also that 10% which is left. In our case, that's the hair, because it's almost impossible to set up something that can solve everything in your selection. So I'm just going to click on OK, and that will update in this mask. So we can see our mask is very nice. It looks great. I can only see one mistake there. This part is has a gap in it. That's why it's very useful to check your mask, alt clicking on it. And I can see another issue there at the bottom. So I'm going to go back, use the brush tool, make my brush a hard edge, 100% opacity, and I just need to make sure white is selected because I need to show these details again. So I'm going to draw over that part there just to show the gloves. Okay, that worked well. So we have a good selection. Now we just have to deal with the hair. But before I do that, I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to fill that with a color. So I'm just going to select a different color. In this case, let's select green because that's not in the image at all. So there's the green background. And now we can deal with the hair. So what I would do here is to select the image, use the lasso tool and draw around all those details when I can still see the purple background. So I'm just going to draw around it. Make sure here around the hair we only select the details where it's necessary to make a selection. Shift drag over that part. This part I can improve with the brush tool. So that looks quite good, the selection. So now we can go into the color range option, select color range, and we can click on the purple background detail to capture that color. Now you can see we captured it quite well, and then we just need that to be selected. We can check always fuzziness, increase or decrease that, but I think we have quite a good selection there. So we can also try the localized color clusters. In some cases that can help to improve your selection. In this case, I think we don't need it. So I'm just going to click on OK. And now that we have this selection, we can go back to our mask and use the brush tool and with black draw over all these details, or you can just press Alt backspace to fill them in with black. So that's already much better. We filtered out a lot of detail from there on the hair. Now we just need to deal with those little leftovers on the edges, which I'm going to do on a separate layer, which I'm going to call hair. And we can, again, just to get used to naming our layers, I'm going to call them all correctly. So on that hair layer, I'm going to draw over those details with the brown color of the hair. But remember to make sure that only shows up on the actual details where we need them. I'm going to create a clipping mask. So Alt click between these two layers will create the clipping mask, and then using the brush tool I can sample from the hair and then just start drawing over it. Now this has to be, of course, changed to color blend mode. So the blend mode of the layer has to be color. And even with that, you have to be careful not to draw over too many detail with the same brown color, because it might look a bit fake. And it might be a good idea to use a soft edge brush as well. That can blend a little bit more into the colors of the hair. Here at the bottom, I might use a darker color because these are all in shadow. While on the top, I might use a little bit brighter color as well. That might help to fade into the colors we need. And then as well here I can draw over that little detail to make sure that looks also good and we don't see any of the original purple color in the background. So let's have a look at the hair now before and after these couple of changes. So you can see that the colors are updated nicely from purple to the good color that we need, and we have a really good mask all around the edges. So that's all what you need to do. Even if you start with a automated selection like the focus area, you would still need to combine the other techniques and tools that we've learned. So remember, I used even the lasso tool here, I used color range, I used the refine edge option, and I also used a separate layer with clipping mask and also a color blend mode to draw over the remaining purple details around the hair. So that's all I wanted to show you in this example. And with that said, this is the end of the second chapter. So these were the simple selection techniques. But in the next chapter, we will look at even more complex selection techniques.